Hey everyone, welcome back to Beneath the Layers. This is podcast episode number 3, and today I have a very special guest. I have a good friend of mine. Her name's Jackie. I've known her for a few months, but I say we have gotten pretty close over the past couple of months now. So I'll have her introduce herself, and then we'll just start talking a little bit about her and the things that she's gone through. So Jackie, go ahead.
Thanks for the introduction. I'm Jackie. I'm 27, grew up in the Bay Area. I've got 2 brothers and a couple of parents who have pretty good marriage, I'd say.
Yeah.
Went to school at UCLA, studied biochemistry, and then moved down to San Diego pretty shortly after, and been here for about 5 years now.
5 years.
Working in the same job, the job that I met Larry in.
And so, like, what would you say, like, has been the hardest part about moving down here? Like, away from your parents, maybe? Or, like, just away from somewhere you were probably really comfortable to somewhere that's so new? Like, how did you sort of handle that?
I wouldn't say it's been too challenging. I moved down with my ex, who I was very serious with at the time, and we didn't know too many people, but I also didn't feel like that I needed too much of a network because I had him, and, you know, he's like a sense of security, I guess.
Okay.
And then when we broke up, I was sort of like craving socializing and like putting myself out there, so that didn't scare me too much. I was kind of like eager to get out there, and now I have a pretty good network here and I feel a sense of community, and I'm close enough to home that I'm like, you know, I can drive up there if I absolutely have to, and I go home often. It's pretty cheap. Yeah,
it's not too bad. It doesn't seem too far away, especially if you fly, because driving might be a little longer.
Definitely 7 prefer to fly.
Yeah. And so when you, like, first moved down here, like you said, you moved down here with your ex, but did you ever feel, like, dependent upon him at all? Because, like, you didn't really know anybody, so it's kind of just, like, you two, and you're just, like, vibing out here in San Diego by yourself, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think actually, like, I appreciated having him, because if I ever did feel like lonely or like worried that I was gonna have trouble making friends, I could rely on him to like be there and be my support. But I more felt like he was holding me back from being like a social being, and like pursuing friendships outside of that relationship. And yeah.
Would you say you're, like, I guess after the breakup, I'm sure you were very upset and sad about it, but, like, do you find yourself to be a little bit more happier now that you're able to socialize more with others, and rather than sort of just having him and, like, kind of only him in a sense?
Totally. I totally, like, came into my own.
Yeah.
I think over the past, like, 2 years, we broke up September 2019, so it's been almost 2 years.
Okay, yeah.
And before we broke up, I was sort of, you know, on my way out of that relationship anyway. So I'd say for the past 2 years, I've just sort of been, like, really just diving into my independence. And, I guess I've always been, like, a happy person, but
yeah.
I think there's definitely just a little bit of this, like, underlying sadness when I was in that relationship, because I think after the first year or two, it just sort of changed and wasn't quite, you know, bringing me the same joy that it was at the beginning, and I was so set on that being my future that I didn't want to let it go, so I stayed in it for longer than I should have. And then when I finally let that go, it was, like, so liberating. And then, like, now I would totally consider myself, like, truly happy.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, I will say that you're probably one of the most happier people that I've ever been around. Like, you like, show it, like, a lot, like, more so than a lot of people that I've ever met. So I think that's great.
Oh,
it's like a great part of your personality.
So much.
But, you know, like, I guess from that time you had broken up with them, you had more of, like, an independence. Is there something within the past 2 years or so that you found out about yourself that you may not have necessarily known beforehand?
That's an interesting question. I I think I've just changed a lot. I don't think I've necessarily like found anything out that like I didn't know was there before. I've just like sort of explored these things that used to be like interesting to me but never really like cared to pursue.
Okay.
Yeah. And now I've just like had the complete freedom to pursue whatever I want to pursue. So I'm just like trying things here and there, and then the more I try things here and there and like I get joy from that, the more I want to try more things here and there. And so I've just sort of really been trying tons of different things and seeing what sticks, and I feel like that's just like me taking shape, like me who I truly am.
So would you say that you're still kind of in the process of discovering like yourself in a way, or like you know who you are and this is actually who you are? You like going out and like being wild soul, essentially.
A free bird.
A free bird, yeah.
I think that so I've read a lot of like self-help books during the past couple of years, and I never used to be a reader, and it's brought me a lot of perspective, like so much. And I also spend a lot of time just like reflecting and thinking. That's one of my favorite pastimes, and I never used to do that before because my ex and I were living together, so I didn't really have the time or the privacy to do that. And I think that I've just gained this perspective that like I'm constantly learning and I'm constantly trying to like change my life for the better, and I'm, you know, having input from books and through my thoughts, but like from my relationships as well, and like just I don't know, all different inputs. And I think I've learned sort of how to learn and how to grow, and I'm like addicted to it. I'm gonna like I know that I'm gonna consistently grow for the rest of my life. Like I wouldn't say I'd say I am who I truly am, but I think that that's person's gonna change as I grow and learn.
I can completely relate to that too, because I remember I just like you in a way, like I kind of hated reading, and like I wouldn't say I read necessarily self-help books frequently, but you know, just from a simple novel or a book that is relaying a sort of message, like I took a lot from it, and I probably same as you, maybe a little bit longer, maybe past 4 years or so. It was like 4 years ago is when I kind of started getting into reading. So is there like one book that you would say has helped you like the most? Maybe
I was about to ask you the same question. Let's see, one book in particular that's made the most impact? Yeah, definitely. You already know what it is. It took me a minute to think about it. I don't know why it didn't just like pop up in my head immediately, but it's called The Hidden Power of Kindness. Okay. And
I know you've told me a little bit about that, but for those who are probably unfamiliar with it, give a little bit about what that book is about, and also like what you took from it specifically.
So it's a Catholic book. Okay. I started it because that's a long story, but I'll try to make it as brief as possible. But
sure, yeah.
During COVID, I really like came into my faith, and growing up, I was Catholic, and when I went to college and got really involved in science and was surrounded by people who were just like very science-based people and didn't have a lot of faith, and a lot of them were actually like anti-God and anti-faith. I really stepped away from my faith, and I considered myself atheist, which really upset my family. Yeah. Because my mom is super Catholic. My whole family's Catholic. Yeah. We're all confirmed, and my dad's not confirmed, but all the kids. and just with my mom in particular, that really hurt her. Yeah. And so we just never really touched that topic. We were super close otherwise, but couldn't really talk about that. And then I came back into my faith and wanted to reopen that conversation with my mom. So I asked her to do a book club with me where we would both read a faith-based book and then discuss it. And it would be like, you know, just like conversation starter. We didn't have to come up with it on our own. And this book, she works for a Catholic church called Our Lady of Angels, and they were reading a book as part of their parish to bring people together during COVID.
Okay.
And she invited me to read it along with them, and I would consider myself Christian now, more so than Catholic. So I was, just like keeping an open mind, but a little bit reserved, and it just made the hugest impact on me. Like the things it was saying, like they were ideas that aren't necessarily just religious ideas or Catholic ideas. They're just how to be a good person, and like how much being a good person can make a positive impact on your life, and how that can make a huge impact on your happiness, and like how that happiness can then just like increase your kindness, and it's just like this snowball effect. And the whole idea of the book, there's 3 different sections, and the first was how to be kind in your thoughts, and the second was how to be kind in your words, and the last was how to be kind in your actions, and basically how kindness starts with your thoughts, and that can influence your words and your actions. And it's a long-winded description of this book, but I couldn't recommend it enough. They don't sponsor me.
No, that's fine. I mean, I feel like you can definitely get something good out of a book like that. You did mention something interesting, and that was that your family is mostly Catholic, but you consider yourself to be Christian. And so what made you sort of, be more of a Christian than Catholic, like how you've grown up or how your family is? Is there something in particular that you can pinpoint to that, or?
Yeah, I'm always afraid to answer this question because I believe that a lot of the reason I might be turned off to Catholicism, I just don't understand. And through my faith studies, I'm starting to understand it a little bit better, and it's making me open my mind to it a little bit more. But I don't think I would ever consider myself truly Catholic. That's what I say right now. We'll see what happens. But there's a lot of ritual involved, and which I believe makes it so much a religion. And I don't know, I don't really consider my faith like a religion. I think I consider myself Christian because my beliefs align most with Christianity, but that makes sense. Think it's kind of, in shape, and I don't accept any one set of beliefs wholeheartedly. I kind of I believe in the Holy Spirit, and it's a very Christian idea, which is that when you believe in God and when you accept God to be real, you receive a God that lives within you, and that's the Holy Spirit. And so I hear things that are part of different faiths, whether it be Christianity or Catholicism or anything else, and I weigh it against the Holy Spirit, and I believe that the Holy Spirit will tell me if that's something that is true or if it's not, and that's how I accept or reject things. But also with Catholicism, they give importance to people, and there's a lot of there's sort of a hierarchy within within the Catholic Church, and in my belief, there's God and then humans, and we're all equal as humans.
More of a monarchy type, if you want to put it that way.
Yeah, I guess so.
So something that's really interesting is that you, at one point, were very religious and had a lot of faith, and then you entered the science sort of field, and then that kind of diminished that a little bit, or you lost the faith, you can say. And then you kind of came back to it. So can you talk a little bit about how that journey was, how you sort of, if somebody, for example, was listening to this and they're struggling with their own faith, give your own personal experience with that.
Yeah, I think that it was, I was just under this impression that science and God were in contention, and that if you believed in science and facts and like raw evidence, that you couldn't also believe in God, because where's the evidence there, and like where's the scientific backing there, and like I just kind of accepted this idea that like I was only going to believe something if you could prove that it was real. And I realized that was sort of an ignorant way of thinking, because I don't think that we'll ever know everything, right? So like, why would I reject something just because it hasn't been proven to be right? And I think the real turning point, I think a huge turning point, was just accepting the fact that I'm not ever going to know everything. So why would I only believe things that I know for certain? And just adopting that mindset, like later on when I was talking to my friend Karen, and she has a very powerful faith. Like she's very into it. She knows her stuff, and she lives a very inspiring lifestyle that is, appealing to me. And I was just like, how, if I wanted to have a life like yours with the faith like yours, how would I even start? And it wasn't that I necessarily wanted it. I was just like, how do you get there? Like, I was curious. And she said, just open your mind. Just open your mind that he's real, and you can like call upon him. And so I did it. I was like, God, if you're real, show me. And like you have a believer in me if you can prove if you can prove it to me, if you can show me that you're real. And like I don't have any evidence that I can show people aside from like who I am and the type of person I am now versus who I was before, and like the difference there. But like, it changed my life. My mind was different. Like, the world was different. The way I was seeing things was different. It was like undeniable to me that he was working and he was showing himself to me. It was like too much for me to go against and say, okay, I'm rejecting this. Like, I have evidence personally. So that's where it started, and it was like very small, and just grew from there.
I mean, that's pretty amazing. And then, so would you say that like just daily, your day-to-day decision making is like your faith plays a big role in that? Or is it very like, when you're making sort of the bigger decisions sort of thing, and then you sort of kind of put your faith against that and help you decide on what to do? Or is it, more of every single decision you make it plays a role?
There's definitely times where I kind of like forget that God is there, I would say. But I think that God has had such an influence on who I am and such an influence on my mindset that there's no decision that I make that isn't somehow, being touched by God. But to more directly answer your question, like, I try to pray constantly throughout the day. Like, I'm in constant communication with God. And I'll just be driving to work, and I'll be like, please, watch over me on this as I drive to work. Like, please protect me. Or I'll be like going into a meeting, and I'll be like, Holy Spirit, speak through me. Like, please communicate what I'm trying to communicate. Or,
so that's why you're so good at meetings. And
that's why, it's the Holy Spirit. This person talking to you today is Jackie, but it's like the Holy Spirit within me. Yeah,
she's really good at communicating, by the way. So if you probably can tell now just by how she's talking and telling her stories, she's really good at that. So in terms of like the people that you choose to surround yourself with, like, are you very picky with that? Like, do they have to sort of believe in the same things that you believe in, or do you just take each individual person as they are, and maybe they fit, maybe they don't fit? Like, how do you surround yourself with the right people?
I think something that my faith has brought me is that I really try to have love for everyone I meet. like for every person, if you're human, I mean, like even in non-human, I try to have love, but, but you know, when considering what type of human relationships I'm going to have in my life, I try to really understand the person and, you know, give them as much the benefit of the doubt as I can, even if it's someone that I'm not clicking with. But I think I am still a pretty good judge of character, and I do try to surround myself with people who are going to be uplifting to me and who are going to like bring perspectives into my life, or like, you know, like are themselves, and like definitely like will choose. I think time is super valuable, and I will choose to spend my time with the people that I enjoy the most. And you know, as far as who exactly I enjoy, I guess it's probably, I would classify them as like positive people. I think that there are like energy takers in this world and energy givers, and I want to be surrounded by people who are energy giving. And I guess that's who I picked to spend my time with. But no one's like disqualified. You know, if you even if you are a terrible person and I create some distance from you, like that doesn't mean you're out of my life. Like you can come back into it easily.
Would you say that you're like a very forgiving person in that aspect?
I try to be, for sure. Sometimes it's hard. Sometimes I might have to let my brain take over, you know, my heart's just like, no, they hurt you. But I really try to not take anything personally and be as forgiving as possible, because like I know from personal experience how much people can change. I've changed so much. And if I didn't have forgiving people in my life, like
that's true,
that would be terrible. I'd feel really bad. So I sometimes am probably a little bit more forgiving than, you know, is wise. But I accept that. And, you know, I accept that challenge, you know, of having people take advantage of you as a growing opportunity. Or I try to as much as I can. I'm not perfect at it. Yeah,
that makes sense. I mean, and so like I'm assuming if something like that was to happen, you know, somebody who you're really close to in some way betrays you, let's say, it's very like sort of painful, or it hurts, obviously. And so what are some things that you would do to sort of, you know, either deal with that pain or, you know, sort of move on from it?
Honestly, I feel like I don't get wronged that often. I think that the better person you are, the less people are like capable of doing
you're probably true. That's probably true, yeah.
But I've definitely been hurt, and a lot of the times the hurt I experience is like a byproduct of someone's behavior, and it's not like someone who has bad intentions for me.
I see, yeah.
Which makes it easier to cope with, because I just have to tell myself, like, don't take this personally. They just weren't being thoughtful to you and like considering you, which is hurtful, but like they were being selfish. And even when someone intentionally wrongs me, what I like to think is like that's their problem.
Got it. Yeah.
This isn't something that I should be taking personally. If I'm giving my best, and you know, if I'm, you know, putting my best foot forward, and say sometimes I mess up, like all I can give is my best, and so I really shouldn't feel bad about it. And if that causes someone to want to do something wrong to me, like, I don't know, I would hope they would be more understanding, and if they're not, like, maybe they're dealing with some shit. I don't know.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I see where you're coming from. So let's just sort of like reverse the roles here. Like if you were to, I guess, hurt somebody else, especially somebody that you care about, either intentionally, unintentionally, like, is there some sort of feeling of maybe guilt or some bad feeling that makes you want to sort of mend that relationship with that individual that you may have hurt? And if that is the case, like, do you think the only thing you can do is sort of apologize and hope that they forgive you? Or
man, that's a great question. Because it happens, like, even when you're giving your best, inevitably, like, you hurt some people along the way. Yeah. And I think that, I feel really bad, and I definitely feel guilt. And even if, usually it's, usually that guilt comes from like, man, I really should have known better.
Yeah.
Like, I do know better, and I just was being selfish or lazy or whatever, letting my emotions take over. But I guess that happens, so you gotta accept it.
Yeah.
And again, just like being wronged and growing from that, you can grow from wronging someone and feeling how bad that feels to hurt someone, and you know, then you become a better person. I think to mend the relationship, that's tough. It like takes a lot of swallowing your pride and embarrassment, and basically like feeling like shit. And I don't know, I think that the best way to do that is to just try your best to think, what does this person need from me right now? Does this person need space? Does this person need an apology? Like, does this person need me to go above and beyond to show them that I care about them? Like, how am I best going to show this person that I truly care about them, and this is a one-off thing and not who I am and how I feel about them?
Yeah. So, like, if somebody was to be listening right now, and from your own personal experience, you know, they might want some advice on how to like kind of improve themselves or make themselves a better person, what would you say is like has worked for you in terms of your journey through becoming a more kind and better, more positive person?
Well, I appreciate that you're asking me this question, because it's flattering. But I think
you're welcome, I guess.
my number one thing, I cannot like promote this enough to people, but reflection, spending time like doing nothing but thinking, like intentional thinking, and reflecting on honestly anything, like something that involves you is great, because you know, like if you had an experience that you can reflect on and think about how it went and what went well and what didn't go well and how you want to handle it in the future, like that's great too. But even if you just like consider any scenario, I think that's going to benefit you. Like, I've never been in, this is just an example, this isn't about kindness or anything, but like thinking in general, I've never been in a mass shooting, but they happen, right? And they're all over the news. So I think about it, and I think about them when I hear these stories, and I'm like, if I'm in that situation, what am I doing? And now I feel way more equipped if that were to happen. I've even done like research. You don't have to go that far, but like, I don't know. I feel like thinking can really prepare you for future scenarios and can align you to who you want to be. And if you know who you want to be, you're gonna have a lot more direction in being that person than if you didn't think about it at all and just kind of tried your best in every situation. Like, if you can prepare yourself as much as possible by thinking and reflecting, you know, you're gonna have this model that is yourself, of like this, that is your vision of who you want to be, to strive for, and that's gonna be like, you're gonna become that person.
And I think that's actually pretty spot on. And the one thing that I would say is very important, what you just said, is like kind of figuring out what it is or who it is that you want to be. And I feel like that's something that a lot of people struggle with, is they could be feeling stuck and like they don't even know who they are themselves. Is there a moment in time where you realized like you knew who you were, you knew who you wanted to be? Or is there like something that had like a experience that you had gone through that was like, you know what, I know who I am. Like, I'm going to be that person, you know?
Interesting. I don't think there has been a moment. I think thinking, though, has like, I've encountered situations that I've thought about before. Like, it happens all the time, because you know your life, you know the types of situations you're gonna be in, and having done that, I feel security, or not security, but like confidence in my decisions. And I think that has helped, I'm getting off topic here, but that's helped me like rid myself of anxiety.
Okay.
Still creeps in a little bit when
Yeah.
you're kind of in situations where you're like, I don't know what to do. I don't know who I want to be. Like, I feel awkward. But going into situations, knowing who I want to be, I'm like, yeah, like this is the decision. This is the right decision.
Yeah.
I've thought about what I want to do and I know who I want to be. And so then you don't have anything like that anxiety. And then you're I think that the less anxiety you have, the better you operate in this world.
Yeah.
And that's just only gonna propel you forward.
That's true, because anxiety can get, what I feel like anxiety does a lot to most people is kind of affect their decision making, you know,
Mm-hmm.
like, and that's what really makes people even more anxious, more worried, so on and so forth. But so I really think that you come off as like a really confident and like secure person. I'm sure there are probably some insecurities you have about yourself, but like, what has helped you become sort of more confident in yourself and like confident in the decisions that you do make?
Well, my faith and learning about God.
Mm-hmm.
And sort of when I accepted God into my life, he was like the one that I cared about,
Yeah.
his opinion, you know?
Uh-huh.
Honestly, I considered all humans equal. So like, you know, like no one opinion mattered to me necessarily more than others.
Yeah.
And I've like come to understand that God is like a forgiving God and a loving God, and he knows who you are, he knows your heart, and so like I don't have anxiety because I'm like, he's gonna forgive me, he's gonna love me no matter what, so I don't need to worry. And then everyone else's opinion, as long as I'm giving my best and as long as God's happy, then it doesn't even really matter.
Yeah.
And then that's helped me get rid of my anxiety. And I think also just tying it back to knowing who you want to be, like that's the biggest thing. Like you gotta be yourself.
Yeah.
You gotta be yourself. I guess that too, like when you realize that what are you doing with your life if you're not like being yourself, then that lets you let go of a lot of anxiety too, because then it's like,
Yeah.
I'm just being myself. If you don't like it, well, this is how I'm meant to be living my life. So
That's true. Yeah, because I mean, I can relate to that. I feel like maybe a lot more when I was younger. I felt like I really didn't have a direction. You know, I would sort of try to fit in with, I guess, whoever really wanted, like, was willing or showed me they were willing to like be my friend in a way. You know, and so, you know, I definitely growing up had a few phases. You know, because I didn't really know who I was. But similar to kind of like what you were talking about, I kind of just, you know, decided at one point, like, I need to just be more of myself and what makes me happy, more so than trying to be what I think other people want me to be to make them happy.
did that just like happen out of the blue? Or was there a moment for you?
You know, it feels like it happened out of the blue, but I know that it's just accumulation of moments that sort of built up into this one final, like, here I am, and I'm going to be that sort of person, you know? And so one thing that I think has really helped me grow, I feel like I grew up, I guess, pretty quickly. And I feel like that happened because I had a lot of different experiences. And sometimes people don't really have a lot of experiences when they're younger. It maybe starts to come out a lot more when they're older. And so if you think back maybe to your younger years, has there been a lot of like experiences that has helped shape you into, you know, who you are? Or do you kind of feel like you've been shaped into the person you are more like recently?
I definitely think that like most of my growth has been in the past year and a half to 2 years.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I think, you know, struggle is relative. I definitely would say that my upbringing was sheltered and privileged. But you know, I had my things that I worried about.
Yeah.
And I definitely grew from those things. Like, you know, I dealt with a little bit of bullying, but nothing compared to like these stories that you hear.
Yeah.
And I dealt with a whole lot of social anxiety, and I went through a pretty serious depression when I was in college. That was definitely something that I grew from a lot. And my relationships, whether it be boys or friends or, I don't know, just people that you encounter that somehow have a huge impact on your life. But most of my personal growth has come from my reading and my thinking and my faith in the past year and a half.
Past year and a half. So you would kind of probably agree with people will either figure themselves out or kind of become a better person kind of like on their own time, and everybody kind of grows at their own pace in a way. Would you agree with like some like a statement like that? Or
I would. I think what really changed things for me is I think I would grow from my experiences growing up for sure, but I feel like I grow more from my experiences now, because I realized that like every experience is an opportunity to learn something new.
That's true.
And once you realize that, and then you reflection, then you can just like take so much more from those experiences and carry that on with you. Whereas like before, I think I was kind of like, I had these experiences happen, and I had feelings about them, and I definitely would learn like if I encountered a similar experience in the future, I would, think back on the previous one that I had that was like it, but there was no like intention behind that growth and behind that learning, and so I think that stunted it a bit.
I mean, that makes sense. I have a pretty difficult question for you.
I love this.
Are you ready?
I don't know. We'll see.
So, would you consider yourself to be a happy person? And if it's a yes or a no, how do you know that you are?
I'm certain that I'm a happy person. That's such an easy question, Larry.
Okay, now how do you know?
I don't know.
The reason why I ask is the reason why I ask is because I feel like that's a question that maybe you personally might not struggle with, but I feel like it's a common question that a lot of people struggle with. Okay. So if I've had
a little bit of time to think about it.
Okay.
I got a better answer.
All right, okay.
Go ahead. I love life.
Okay.
I love life. I think there's so much in life that is so good. And I think a lot of people have an opposite view. Yeah. And that is like, there's so much bad out there. Like, this is hell on earth, And I was one of those people when I was severely depressed. Like, I know that side of life where it's just like, I am just trying to get through this. Yeah. Like, this is more of a challenge than it is, an experience.
Yeah, I see. Yeah.
And, there was more bad feeling than there was good when I thought about the world outside me. Yeah. And I think that that's really easy to do in today's society because there's a lot of bad out there, and that's what you hear about, and like that's where a lot of your fear comes from, and that's just the general culture, I think, of society right now is like fear and depression and anxiety and like self-consciousness and are you successful enough? Are you attractive enough? Like all these things. And
things that just bring doubt into people's minds.
A lot of doubt.
And I feel like it kind of just creates a society full of more pessimistic people than optimistic people. And pessimism, I think, is something that stunts growth, personal growth in particular. And I feel like that's, because you're so optimistic, that's probably a good indication of why you've grown so much recently. I mean, I didn't really know you that well before this past year and a half, so I only know like optimistic you. But just from hearing you talk, I feel like you've definitely changed a lot over the course of your life. Going from having extreme faith to losing it to having it again, and just that shaping you as a person.
Yeah, so I've known both sides. Yeah. So I feel like I can have confidence when I say I'm a happy person. Yeah. Because I know what it's like to not be a happy person.
Yeah. And so, like, what would be, like, if you were to give advice to somebody who is in that in-between stage, sort of on the cusp of maybe looking at the world a little more optimistically compared to looking at it how most people do in a pessimistic sort of fashion. Like, since you've, teeter-totter between both sort of perspectives, like what kind of helped you become more optimistic? Is it going back to your faith? Is it sort of the experiences you've had on both sides and kind of figuring out that, life is a lot more happier being optimistic than pessimistic?
Well, life is a lot happier. Like, when don't you want to live a happy life?
Yeah.
Like, don't do it. Don't bring sadness upon yourself. Like, like, why would you do that? But I know having been there, like, that's way easier said than done. Like, infinitely easier said than done. My biggest pieces of advice, like, definitely influenced by my faith, but they're not necessarily faith,
like just
specific ideas. Yeah. One would be to look outwardly more than you look inwardly. The more concerned with your own feelings and how you are doing, and the more concern you have for yourself, which is like, of course you're gonna have the most concern for yourself out of everyone, but the more you can get rid of that and be more concerned with other people, focus your attention on other people and what you can give them and what you can bring to them and how you can make their lives better. The more you do that, like, you're gonna have less anxiety, you're gonna be less concerned about yourself, and you're gonna feel lighter and you're gonna feel better. You're gonna not have all that heavy stuff that you carry in the forefront of your mind. You're gonna be able to put that in the back and, like, live a more fulfilling life and a lighter life. And I think a lighter life is a happier life.
Yeah, that's true. I would agree with that. Yeah.
And then my second piece of advice would be to build the good. I'm gonna trademark that. It's gonna be the name of my brand.
Build the good.
I don't know what it's gonna be, but it's similar to just, like, looking outwardly, and I think you got to shift your focus. You got to shift your perspective. Instead of focusing on all this bad, which our society kind of funnels us all into, focusing on the bad. And, like, I think that, when we think about changing the world for the better, we think about stopping all this bad. I think instead what we should do is build the good, and we should funnel all of our efforts into building up this good, divert our attention from the bad to the good, like, bring the attention to the good. I think so much of what attracts us to the bad too is how much attention it gets. And we need to focus our attention and focus our efforts on building the good, and this bad will just pale in comparison, because there is so much good out there. There is way more good out there than there is bad, I'm certain. And, like, infinitely more. It's just we don't pay attention to it. We just, like, either take it for granted or just, like, don't even notice it. And we need to pay more attention to that and focus our attention on that. And if you're focusing on the good, where is the bad? Like, you can't even see it. It's in your peripheral.
That's true.
Yeah. Build the good.
Build the good. Trademarked. She already has it. Look out for that brand, right? Okay. So would you think that... So just a quick question off of what you just said. It was very interesting because I don't really think I've heard it described in that way, the way you described it, as far as build the good. But I feel like a lot of people, especially in this society, don't pay attention to it because for whatever reason in human nature, it just seems like all the bad stuff is a lot more entertaining. It's a lot more like people pay attention to it more for whatever reason. And when something good does happen or something amazing happens, it like kind of gets brushed over, and people don't really like care too much about it. But when something bad happens, it's like everybody wants to talk about it. Everybody wants to like get involved in some way, give their opinions on it, so on and so forth. So what do you think, sort of like as a society, that sort of comes from?
I think that comes from self-centeredness and the need to feel good about yourself and to care about how you feel about yourself and how you look to other people more than you care about the general good. And like, I think that we're so like attention focused as a society, that we need credit and we need recognition and reward. And, you know, I think that we stray away from celebrating other people's successes because we think that in some way that takes away from our own. And I think that when there's bad, it's really easy to feel better then. And it's really easy to be like, okay, like I'm great. Like I've got my shit together. I'm not doing this bad stuff. Like I know better than that. So I can feel good about myself. And we want to draw attention to the bad because it makes us look better in comparison. And so we're like, everyone look at this failure. See, I'm better than that. And then when there's good out there, you know, there's a part of you that is like, dang, I wish I did that.
That's true.
Or dang, I wish I was getting credit for something that I did that is just as good. And, you know, we don't want to celebrate it. Give too much praise to people. It's that people think that somehow that takes away from you.
That makes sense. You know, I kind of, I would agree with that actually. So that kind of just leads me to that people tend to be a lot more selfish than selfless. And you're one of the more selfless individuals I've ever met. And so, you know, like, how would you help someone who you can see is like making decisions based off their own selfish intentions, and like what's something that they can do to become, I guess, more selfless?
Does this person want to become more selfless, or am I just trying to have a positive impact on their life? I mean, see them to be people who can, I guess, you know,
if somebody's going to want to become selfless, I'm sure they're aware of that. So yeah, we'll go with that. Like they want to become selfless, you know, like if somebody who's just like, they're just a naturally selfish person, it's probably going to be extremely difficult to get them out of that sort of mentality. So like, let's just say somebody who's working on becoming more selfless, you know, what are some things that they can do to kind of help that, you know, help guide them to become more of a people person than more of a selfish person? I
think that the best thing you can do is try to rid yourself of your pride.
So you think pride is like the big factor in selfishness? Okay.
I think that everything I just talked about like drawing attention to the bad so that you feel better and not really wanting to celebrate the good comes from your need to be the best, and you know, you're proud. And I think that when you stop needing people to see you as this great person, that it's way easier to, you know, be happy for other people and want to help other people. And once you start, it's addicting. I would say just try and start, even if you have to kind of force yourself over that hump of like, I don't want to help this person because maybe it's going to help them get ahead of me. Like, just try to push past that and do it, and realize that like there's enough recognition and praise and like good stuff out there to go around. Like, you're not in competition with everyone else. We're all in this together. Like, we should all be building each other up. That's only gonna help you. And once you like stop seeing everyone as like competition, you're gonna help people. So like, rid yourself of your pride, push past whatever barrier you have that makes you not want to be a selfless person. And then again, like, just try to, when you have thoughts that are like selfish thoughts, when you have thoughts that are very self-centered thoughts, try to divert your energy to someone else and be like, what can I do for someone else? Like, how can I turn the attention to someone else?
I like the way that you put that, because I feel like you know, overall society as a whole is selfish. And I feel like just as a society, as a culture, whether, you know, you're in America or some other country, I don't think it really matters. But if you have that mindset, then you as a society don't really progress that far, you know. I feel like if everybody had a more selfish approach, kind of like how you were talking about, then I feel like us as a society would just progress like exponentially.
Totally.
You know?
Imagine America if there weren't Democrats and Republicans.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Imagine. It's like when there's an uprising, you know? If you can collectively, it's impossible to do. Like, it's impossible to do with a large group of people. But if you can get everyone building each other up, uplifting each other, having a common goal, you're unstoppable.
I agree with that.
And like, why can't we all be trying to go for the same goal?
I know. It's because we're selfish, right?
Why does there have to be competition?
Yeah.
Let's have competition, but let's have it be like fun competition.
Fun competition.
Like games.
Games are fun. Yeah.
Games and sports and stuff.
Yeah. Those can be a little competitive.
Yeah, but I guess wars have probably been started over stuff like that.
It's probably true, yeah. You're right. Well, Jackie, I really, really appreciate you coming on today's episode. I definitely learned a lot about you, and I'm sure whoever's listening will definitely learn a lot and can take some of your concepts and hopefully, bring them to their own life. But thank you, appreciate you, and I'll probably have you on sometime soon.
Yeah, please. This is fun. I could go on and on.
Yeah, I don't know how long it's been recording.
I came in thinking I was going to learn something about Larry, and I just ended up talking, but I really appreciate your insightful questions.
That's how, so far, you're the third episode, and so far it's been mostly, me getting into the head of others, which I think is pretty cool.
You're pretty good at it. Even from when I first met you, the types of questions you were asking, I was like, where does this guy come from?
Yeah.
This is not the type of questions I get. But I love these types of questions. Yeah. I have a lot of philosophy.
Well, there you go. Yeah.
I love having a platform that I can share it on.
We'll definitely have you on again soon. So, of course.
Honestly, I'm flattered that you even considered me. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Yeah. You were supposed to be the first one, I think, but you were busy.
You should tell that to all your guests.
I should tell it to all your guests that they're supposed to be the first one.
Yeah, my heart just got a little warmer.
Yeah, I'll do that. I'll do that next week. All right. See you guys next week.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thanks for listening.